have Track 61. This is a train that was actually hidden from the public for a very, very long time, as it was a private train for President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Apparently, Franklin didn't want the public to know when he was going to New York, and so he had a private train made for him. Naturally. And of course his train had to have a private secret station, and that was called Track 61. He couldn't have just stopped in Grand Central Station, he would have been bombarded and spotted in no time. Anyways, apparently the station has long been abandoned, but at one point was a place for wealthy travelers and politicians. In our number 9 spot we have Oak Ridge. Okay, so this is a place that was once hidden that the US government didn't want anyone to know about, so whatever, it works. Oak Ridge was a place in 1943 that thousands of workers, soldiers, and scientists were kept in order to work hard on the Manhattan Project, a top secret project for the government that not even the workers knew what the project was about. It was so secret that they weren't allowed to discuss what they were working on with each other, and of course they weren't allowed to share anything with anyone outside of work. They were made to take lie detector tests regularly. About 60,000 acres of land around Oak Ridge was purchased by the government to ensure that they had the required space to reach their goals. Pretty wild. Apparently this was one of the best kept secrets in World War II. In our number 8 spot we have 404. 404 is an abandoned nuclear testing city. Well, largely abandoned. There's still about 1,000 people living there. But yes, you heard that right. There is a city in China that was created for the purpose of working on nuclear devices. The government carefully selected people from all walks of life that could contribute to their goal of creating this nuclear device and moved them there. It took 4 years to load up the city and 6 years to create the nuclear device successfully, but they did achieve their goal. Around 2006 was when the city slowly became evacuated as there were, quote, large-scale cave-ins. I guess the houses weren't being kept in good shape, but in any case, fascinating to hear that they did this. In our number 7 spot, we have the North Sentinel Island. Okay, this place is such a trip. When I first heard of this island existing, I definitely had a moment where I said out loud, yo, how many things do I not know that I don't know? Also, isn't it just like a trip that there will be things in life that you don't know that you don't know? That one just makes me want to say yo every time. My mom loves me. Okay, so back to the reason why I'm yoing so much. There is an island that is home to a tribe called Sentinels, and this island is forbidden to everyone. If you go anywhere near the island, the people that are standing guard will either hunt you down with an arrow or kill you if you end up on shore. The people have lived there for over 50,000 years under the protection of the Indian government. The somewhat blurry pictures that have been taken of these people on the beach shows you that they are living in another period than us. It's crazy to think that in some part of this world, technology does not exist. I wonder if we'll ever see anyone escape the island someday. That story would honestly be epic to hear. In our number 6 spot today, we have the LASCAUX Cave. The LASCAUX Cave is allegedly a cave filled with absolute treasures. It's a cave that can only be accessed by archaeologists and is completely closed down to the public, but probably for a good reason. The cave contains paintings that are supposedly 17,300 years old. Apparently the Paleolithic paintings are quite vivid and depict stags, cattle, and many animals. I'm sure there's so many places like this in the world that we've never been told about because we're just regular people. I'm just your regular basic gal who loves her Starbucks and reads the Shopaholic series at night. No need to tell me about the secret caves. I may try to go there and do an Instagram shoot. I wouldn't actually do this. This is just my assumption as to what they would think I would do. Although, I feel like I would look cute beside a prehistoric stag painting. In our number 5 spot, we have the Ise Grand Shrine. In Japan, there is a shrine called the Ise Grand Shrine that is completely blocked off to anyone except royalty. Apparently, it's one of the most expensive shrines in the world, and because it follows Shinto traditions, which go back to the 8th century, the temple is rebuilt every 20 years. feels a little unresourceful to me, but YOLO. The public is absolutely forbidden to enter its walls. Okay, first off, I bet we're not allowed in because these people are either 1, doing some satanic sacrifice type ritual that people today would not be okay with and protest with metaphorical pitchforks, or 2, or maybe they are doing something just, you know, religious. Or 3, they are guarding an entrance to another world like Narnia or some kind of magical dimension, or heck, maybe they're just performing some magical things in there. Maybe that's a sanctuary for the lizard people. I could brainstorm forever. In our number 4 spot, we have the secret elite male-only club. There is a male-only club in California called Bohemian Grove that is extremely private, and one can only enter if one has been invited. It is extremely secret, and some people have tried to expose what happens there over the years, but still, much of what happens is a great mystery. All that is known is that there is a giant owl statue, and people have claimed to have seen some kind of ritual there from across the lake. There are allegedly top government officials, politicians, entertainers, and people that are quite established in their field that go there. Some speculate that it's a satanic cult, but there is no proof. I would think that they would want us to believe that perhaps it's just some old men hanging out and bragging about their power, but something tells me that it's probably more than that. But the conspiracy theorists of the world go nuts contemplating what happens in this place. In our number 3 spot, we have NIIHAU Island. This is another island that is completely forbidden to the public. The island has about 160 inhabitants, and unless you have a relative on the island or you are part of the US Navy, you are not allowed. This island is located near Oahu, a famous Hawaiian island, and the reason it is so heavily protected, well, it is apparently to preserve the environment and wildlife. I wonder if that's the real reason, or perhaps there's something else that they're protecting the world from seeing, like real live fairies. Or giants. Or maybe that's where the original people from Atlantis actually went instead of Ireland, like some speculate. In our number 2 spot, we have Area 51. A part of me didn't want to include this one because everyone and their uncle knows about it due to the popular Hollywood films around it, but anyways, it's completely hidden off of Google Maps, but quite frankly, a lot of places are. That could be a whole other video, but also, clearly, the government does not want us to know what's happening inside of it. Area 51 is located in the state of Nevada and is, interestingly enough, inside a mysterious phenomena that is called the Nevada Triangle. A lot of mysterious planes and people disappear in the Nevada Triangle, and I'm convinced it's the fault of the aliens in Area 51. Either that or there's a portal to another world. One of the two. Workers that have worked there have claimed to have worked on elements that don't seem to be from this world and pieces of metal that appear to be out of this world. But in any case, no one can deny that something strange is going on in there that would probably change the world as we know it, which is probably why we don't know about it, and they probably ain't filling us in anytime soon. Let's be real. In our number 1 spot, we have the underground speed testing facilities. There are a lot of hidden underground testing facilities in the world dedicated towards testing speed. Allegedly, at Russia's Ministry of Defense headquarters, they have managed to create a missile that travels at a speed of Mach 7, and some also say Mach 9. Just to give you some perspective as to how fast that is, a plane travels at the speed of less than Mach 1, about Mach 0.75 to 0.85. So yeah, that's fast. Apparently, there are plenty of US underground testing facilities that are rumored to have been testing at crazy speeds like this, but of course, this is hidden and not common knowledge to the everyday folk. Also, apparently a Mach 5 plane is in the works, and that is supposed to get you from New York to LA in 30 minutes. Imagine what a Mach 7 plane could do. Hopefully those planes will be effective in our lifetime, but who knows, maybe they already are for the elite. Just
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Grand Union Hotel. This hotel resides in Fort Benton, which is one of the oldest towns in Montana, and it was first established by the French-American fur traders Auguste and Pierre Choteau in 1846. While much of the town has been dismantled by the years, the Grand Union Hotel still stands, and it is among the oldest in the town, with its initial build taking place in 1882. There are many ghost stories and haunting tales that have come from this hotel, but I will tell you one of my favorites. Apparently, this hotel might be the home to a paranormal horse. A phantom horse. It really doesn't get more interesting than that. People have reported hearing the stomping of hooves, and they believed that this horse belonged to a cowboy who, one night after having a few too many pops, tried to ride his horse up the main staircase before he was shot by the hotel manager. In our number 9 spot today, we have 2223 Montana Ave in Billings. This address seems a little suspiciously specific, but the story behind this haunting is quite a tragic accident. In 1945, on December 8th, an airplane that was transporting World War II soldiers who were returning home from war ended up crashing in a field east of Rocky Mountain College. 17 servicemen and 2 pilots lost their lives in this crash, while there were only 4 survivors. This is of course a lot of people, and at the time it was too many for the morgue to handle at one time, so the majority of the bodies needed to be stored somewhere else for the time being. This led to 13 of the bodies being held at a refrigerated warehouse of the local grocery store located at, you guessed it, 2223 Montana Ave. This address has had many different businesses come through its doors since this tragic story occurred, and with all these businesses, the same chilling stories have remained. Employees and customers have reported seeing the ghost of a man in a World War II era military uniform inside of this location. Considering the years it's been, it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere soon. In our number 8 spot today, we have Fort Peck Theater. This town dates back to the building of the Fort Peck Dam because the town was initially built to temporarily house the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, workers, and their families. In the 1930s, while building the amenities that would be needed, the Fort Peck Theater was also built in order to provide the residents with some entertainment. The theater is still used to this day, mostly for theatrical productions, but it's also full of paranormal entertainment as well. The theater is said to be haunted by a male spirit who appears wearing 1930s work clothes. Some visitors even report hearing sounds of men at work even when the theater is empty, and sometimes apparitions even appear in the dressing rooms. I just think that's the most theater thing ever. Ghosts in the dressing rooms? Shakespeare would love that. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Boulder Hot Springs Inn and Spa. This inn is located, of course, in Boulder, and it is actually a place that dates back to a time before Montana was even a state. This now historical landmark was initially created or recognized in 1881, and it was a place where businessmen, miners, and ranchers could all go, and here they could sort of mingle with each other. In this day and age, it is said that you might still be able to mingle with those guests from all of those years ago. As legend has it, this place is highly haunted. The most well-known of the ghosts here, however, is that of a woman named Simone. It is said that Simone sadly had her life taken in the hotel, and that her spirit now resides there. Visitors and staff alike have reported some really strange occurrences, like extreme temperature shifts, drastic changes in energy, and even the sound of children running through the halls when there is no one to be seen. In our number 6 spot today, we have St. Charles Hall. The oldest building on the Carroll College campus, which is located in Helena, is said to be St. Charles Hall, named after St. Charles Borromeo, who the college was actually initially named after. The building was originally constructed in 1904 and is mostly used as a dorm for students now, and those who reside in this dorm have quite the stories about the men's washroom on the 4th floor. This is said to have been the site of a horrible tale. Story goes that in 1964, a student blacked out while brushing their teeth, and as they fell, they hit their head on the sink in the bathroom. They were treated at the local hospital, but unfortunately passed from their injuries and complications. After this, students using that bathroom began to experience strange happenings. A glance in the mirror would have them seeing a young man standing behind them with a head wound. Some would turn on the faucet and see blood flowing rather than water. After years of these reports, the bathroom has apparently now been locked up and is no longer in use, but people still report hearing scraping sounds from the inside. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Many Glacier Hotel. The Many Glacier Hotel has sat in its home on the eastern shore of Swift Current Lake for over a century now, and with history like that, there is bound to be many a ghost story. Other hotels in the area too have talks and tales of hauntings, but none seem as active as the Many Glacier Hotel. A ghost hunter by the name of Karen Stevens has taken to documenting some of these paranormal stories. One of the most frightening is the tale of a young boy who apparently witnessed a woman woman in a red dress standing in his hotel room. Guests aren't the only ones, however. Employees too have had their own encounters. The most active room in the hotel is apparently room 308, where you can not only hear strange noises, but also see apparitions that vanish into thin air just as quickly as they appeared. In our number 4 spot today, we have the DALY Mansion. This mansion is located in Hamilton, and in its previous life, it was the farmhouse to the Copper King Marcus Daly. He purchased this home in 1886 and put it through some extensive renovations for it to become the sort of Georgian revival style that it still has today. In 1941, when Margaret Daly passed away, the house fell into disrepair after several years of being neglected, and this led to the state purchasing it in 1986. The state began restoration work on the property, and this is when many of the haunting tales started to spread. Smoking, of course, is not allowed in the home in this day and age, but many visitors to the home have experienced the distinct smell of a cigar smoke that seems to be coming from what was once the office of Marcus Daly. Not only this, but in the music room, there is a painting that just can't quite seem to stay on the wall, but no one has ever seen it fall off. Some even report to have seen the ghost of Mrs. Daly themselves. In our number 3 spot today, we have Grasshopper Glacier. This place is quite different than the others on this list, but for me, this place is the stuff of nightmares. Yeah, if you aren't a fan of bugs, you can go ahead and skip this one. If I were you, I would go. A glacier in Montana is the home to many grasshoppers and locusts. Yeah, imagine heading to a glacier, but you forgot bug spray. What a fool. Oh wait, I forgot. Grasshoppers, they don't care. They aren't mosquitoes, they're absolute savages. Appropriately named Grasshopper Glacier, the mile-long glacier near Crook City holds the remains of extinct grasshoppers. The only thing worse is if they all came back to life. These guys likely were in the middle of travel when they found themselves stuck in a blizzard, and now they're stuck for the foreseeable future. This is like a very forbidden version of one of those like scorpion lollipops. In our number 2 spot today, we have Virginia City. This town is often referred to as a ghost town due to the fact that as of 2020, the population sat just slightly over 200 people, and it is no surprise that this ghost town is said to be the home of some of Montana's most famous hauntings. Virginia City was first founded in 1863 by prospectors who originally named the area after the wife of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. The name was only changed when a judge, Judge G.G. Bissell, who was signing the town's registration, objected to the name and instead ruled it to be called Virginia. The town's population began to grow once people heard of the nearby gold deposits and discoveries. As the town grew, there wasn't sufficient law enforcement, which meant that there were a lot of vigilantes out there looking to take the law into their own hands. This led to many people who were suspected of being traveling robbers being hanged by said vigilante groups. By the time the 1940s rolled around, the town was in ruins. Charles and Sue Bovey ended up coming and buying up all the property they could, and the town now remains a tourist site, but not without some ghostly tales to spice up the story. One of the most well-known ghosts is that of a tall man in a blue Civil War soldier's coat, and he is often said to be found walking around the town's boardwalk at night, smoking as he strolls. Another one of the most famous sightings is that of a woman and a young girl. Little is known about their story, but they are often sighted by tourists. In our number 1 spot today, we have Deer Lodge. Deer Lodge at the old Montana Territorial Prison, now known as the Old Prison Museum, once held prisoners for over 100 years. It apparently was quite a lousy place during that time that was full and overcrowded and had terrible food, and it was just a very dangerous place. Many inmates took each other's lives here, and with all of the stories from when this was a prison, it's just clear that if any place were to be haunted, it would absolutely be this one. There even was a huge riot that broke out in 1959. Since this prison closed down in the 1970s, the tales haven't become any less grim. Visitors report hearing eerie noises, and some have even felt the sensation of being touched. Many people believe that the ghost of convicted killer Paul Eitner, known as Turkey Pete, still haunts cell number 1. He was incarcerated at the prison for 49 years before he passed away in 1967.
Number 10. Driscoll Hotel, Austin. While there are many reportedly haunted hotels in Texas, this one seems to top many lists for the most ghostly activity. Most of this seems to stem from the very chilling stories of room 525. In the 1880s, there was a young couple that was having their wedding at the hotel, or at least that was the plan. The groom got cold feet and left the bride at the altar. Now, heartbroken, she ran upstairs to their suite, room 525, and took her own life. And it said she still walks the halls in her long white gown. But that isn't the end of the story. because in 1991, another bride was spurned at the altar, and after going on a shopping spree with the groom's stolen credit card, she too returned to room 525 and took her own life. Since then, guests have seen her carrying a pistol and walking into the room, all without ever opening the door. So don't stay in room 525 or you may never check out. There's also an eerie painting that's said to be inhabited by the spirit of a young girl, the daughter of a senator, whose expression seems to change on its own. People who view the painting have said that they feel like they were floating off of the ground, though they remained on the floor. They also say that their equilibrium and balance was off for a few hours after looking at her. Number 9. USS Lexington, Corpus Christi. Now before I tell you about this spooky ship, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can catch all of our amazing videos. As a naval vessel that saw actual battle, there have been multiple lives that were lost on board, including that of an engine room operator who still roams the ship at night waiting for the battle to end. The crew of the ship have often reported flickering lights and doors slamming on their own, which, given that this is a very well-maintained historical site, you'd think that they would have found the cause by now. Maybe it's just the ghosts of sailors lost to time. Coming in at number 8, we have the MARFA lights in, you guessed it, the town of MARFA. While there is so much beauty in the area and plenty of non-spooky reasons to visit, the main tourist attraction to this quaint little town are floating, sourceless lights that seem to change color and even move in the night sky. Many visitors make the journey at all times of year to see the lights, and there's even a yearly festival made in their honor. Reported since 1883 by people of all ages and professions, no one knows what these floating orbs are. They appear at random, but usually in the same area of the sky, and since there's so much open space and low light pollution, it's perfect for stargazing, or seeing spooky orbs, I guess. Some say that these lights are UFOs, some say spirits, and others think that they're just headlights. All that I know is that if I see a mysterious floating orb, I'm going the other way. Number 7. Woman Hollering Creek, San Antonio. Said to be the home of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, this creepy creek leaves anyone who visits with a sense of dread. As the story goes, La Llorona was a woman who was distraught that her once doting, affectionate husband left her for another woman. And after confronting him and leaving the confrontation with cuts and bruises, she waded into the water, dressed in her best clothes, and drowned herself in the creek, right after doing the same to the rest of her family. Her chilling screams for her children can be heard all the way from the highway, giving her and the creek its very apt name. Many people have felt themselves being drawn towards the water by ghostly voices, and some have even been tugged towards the bank of the creek. Perhaps it's La Llorona looking for her next victim. The screams heard and feelings of being pulled into the water have mostly been reported by younger people, making this all the more terrifying given what La Llorona did. Number 6. El Paso High School. Now, when you're thinking of haunted places, a school isn't exactly the first place that comes to mind, but this one has quite a story. In 1985, the graduating class received their yearbooks, and when basking in the nostalgia of their group photo, they noticed something odd. A woman who no one could identify was in the picture with them. Now, obviously, that would be quite concerning. I know I'd be freaked out if there was someone I'd never seen before standing next to me in a picture. The blurry apparition still has not been identified to this day, but some think it's a student who fell from a window years before who never got to graduate. I say give her the diploma. She's already in the yearbook. Sticking in El Paso, in our number 5 spot is the Plaza Theater Performing Arts Center. As someone who loves the theater, I try to see as many shows as I can, but I think I'll skip visiting this theater, no matter how good the production is. Built in 1930 as a movie house, demolished for a parking lot in the late 80s, and rebuilt as a live theater space, this building has seen many changes, but some things have stayed constant throughout its history. Many workers of the building have reported seeing a man in one of the box seats, in a tuxedo, smoking a cigarette. One crew member recalls seeing him after turning on the stage lights, sitting alone in the box, as though he'd been there for hours already before the lights came on. And when she saw the smoking man, he turned to her and said, "We all have our time to die," and then threw himself headfirst over the balcony, vanishing before he could hit the ground. A former vice president of the theater also recalls seeing a ghostly girl bouncing a ball in the aisles of the theater and always staring. He also noticed that there was a rag doll that seemed to appear and disappear on its own, moving to locations that it couldn't have without someone's help. Even locked doors didn't seem to stop it from appearing in the projection booth. Number 4. Yorktown Memorial Hospital. Established in 1951, this abandoned hospital has been named one of the most haunted places in America. And since over 2,000 patients are said to have died within its walls before it shuttered its doors in 1992, I can see why. Reports of apparitions of people in hospital gowns running through the corridors or hiding in rooms are numerous, along with moving wheelchairs, disembodied voices, and footsteps. But there are some who have even more chilling stories. While exploring the halls and rooms that have remained largely untouched since its closure, some ghost hunters have been touched, had their clothes tugged on, or even pushed to the ground while being given a ghostly warning. Some of the spirits are believed to be that of patients who had illegal medical experiments performed on them and lost their lives in the process, making for a very vengeful ghost. Number 3. The Screaming Bridge in Arlington. On the night of February 4th, 1961, 6 from the local high school were taking a drive after seeing a movie earlier in the evening. While driving down Bedford Road toward the rail crossing bridge, which had mysteriously been burned down a few years previous, only rebuilt earlier that year, they were startled by another car reversing and honking its horn wildly. This caused the driver to speed up out of fear, and not realizing that the bridge was out, the car careened over the edge and crashed into the other side of the ravine. Unfortunately, 3 of them lost their lives that night, and their screams of terror can still be heard by anyone traveling the renamed Greenbelt Road. The saddest part of this story is that the car that startled them was being driven by a man who had just barely avoided going over the edge of the broken bridge himself, and he was reversing and honking to warn them of the danger ahead. The entire area, now known as Death Crossing, is now blocked off and no traffic travels through. At number 2 on our list, we have La CARAFE in Houston. This historic bar, built originally as a bakery in 1860, has been serving patrons for decades, but many come not only for the drinks, but for a paranormal experience. Bartenders and visitors alike have seen apparitions of a hulking man walking upstairs and hearing his giant footsteps pacing the floor. No one knows who this may be, but some say he died there from some nefarious means. The former manager of the bar can also be seen staring out of the top floor window, looking over his patrons and ensuring they're having a good time. And he seems a bit more friendly. However, there are some that report the sounds of a body being dragged across the floor above, but when the sound is followed, nothing's there. Makes you wonder what happened upstairs. And since it's one of the oldest buildings in the city that's been in continuous use, it's become a tourist hotspot and a historical site. Personally, I won't be stopping in for a drink anytime soon, no matter how good the cocktails are. And finally, number 1, the Alamo. While students are taught to remember the Alamo, they don't really teach about all of the spirits who can never forget. In the infamous battle, thousands of soldiers lost their lives, and many were dumped into mass graves and others left to rot out in the sun, so it makes sense that you'd have some pissed off ghosts wandering the ground. There have been countless reports of soldier apparitions walking with weapons in hand, taking their usual patrol, and even full platoons screaming and charging into battle. Even in the afterlife they couldn't get away from war, and so they continue to fight their invisible enemy. There are also accounts of a small blonde-haired boy hiding in multiple places where the gift shop now stands, so make sure to pick up your haunted keychains. While the buildings are beautiful to look at and the area is interesting to explore, the history can leave one with a haunting feeling, and with all those spirits around, I'd be careful touring here, especially at night.